I seeing all of that? I don't want to see all of that. Okay, that's fine. Hello! So I promised I would do a Q&A for my 2,000 subscribers about a week ago, and thank you very much to all currently 2,366 of you for subscribing. I can't believe that I've got all of you, and that you're all so lovely and inquisitive and supportive and engaging. Thank you so much. You guys comment so much, and you ask so much stuff, and I'm trying to keep on top of all the questions in the comments for videos. Do bear with me, and it's lovely. It really does feel like a proper little community that we're building up. It's absolutely class. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you. So let's jump in. I've got a few that I'm going to try and combine, questions-wise. I've actually got dozens of questions on my community tab post here, which is wonderful stuff. Thank you so much. Some of them are related to videos that I want to do in the future, so I'm not going to do any spoilery stuff as far as I can. Forgive the lighting, I've got some nice moody lighting for this one. Maybe I can just slightly... There we go. That's fine. I'm just putting the shutter speed down a little. So let's jump. I'm going to jump straight in with some of the furthest down ones. I'm going to go to the first-ish ones and then make my way. Oh, it just says 1 week ago for all of them. That's useful. Thanks, YouTube. Well, I'm down at the bottom now, so I'm just going to start at the bottom. So, Affusion says, what are your favourite books regarding historical fashion? What pattern books do you recommend for a beginner? I know it depends a lot on a specific period, but I just want to know your favs. So, in terms of pattern books, my favourite ones are probably Nora Waugh's men's clothing from 1600 to 1900, the Tudor Tailor, and the supplementary book The King's Servants. They are brilliant books. Tudor Tailor books are just great. What's the one? There's one for the Herjolfsnes books, and I can't remember that. Medieval Garments Reconstructed, Norse Clothing Patterns from Greenland. So Medieval Garments Reconstructed is great because it's got all of these patterns for finds, and then it's got the finds themselves, and then it's got reconstructions of them, like actual sewn reconstructions of all of these tunics and dresses and hoods from Herjolfsnes in Greenland. And they're mostly a bit later than I tend to do. They're mostly, I think, kind of 12th, 13th, 14th century. But I do plan to make some of them, and they are fantastic. So I recommend some of those books. Those are some of my favourites, I would say. But I tend not to use patterns an awful lot for my Viking period stuff. I tend to try and look at the originals and then kind of make my own patterns from them, because I just find that really amusing. That's part of the hobby for me, is looking at these finds and going, how did you make that? And then experimenting like that. That tends to be a thing that I enjoy doing. Some people hate it. I know a few people who are reenactors who hate the idea of just winging it like that. They need to work from a pattern, and that's totally fine. Oh, follow-up question. What are some common wear and tear signs on your handmade clothes? Oh, my goodness. So, the common stuff is stuff you might imagine. I tend to poke holes through the ends of socks. I have a habit of sitting kind of legs akimbo a lot, so sometimes the crotch seam on my trousers and my hose splits. I actually went through quite a speedy weight loss in my 20s and started noticing suddenly I had all of these areas that were looser than they were before, around the shoulders and around the armpits. And the shoulders and the armpits in closer fitted clothing tends to be where you rip a lot. If you reach up, or you have to do any kind of motion like that, you know, wielding a sword and that kind of stuff, you can tear the shoulder seams. But in Viking clothing, Viking men's tunics, they tend to be quite baggy with the arm gores, so you don't tend to get an awful lot there. But what you do get is a lot of wear and tear on the wrists, if you do manual work, which I do. The soles of the shoes, the leather soles of the shoes really wear out, and that's a problem right the way through history as well. So that's some wear and tear. Catherine Hirscher, do you do anything more fantasy-based? No, sorry, I don't do anything fantasy-based. I do love fantasy. I love the fantasy of Tolkien. I love... does Frank Herbert count as fantasy? I mean, it's science fiction, but it's a science fiction fantasy epic. Frank Herbert, Dune, Diana Wynne Jones is something I've got into recently. Brian Jakes' Redwall series, obviously. It's fabulous. And then, yeah... But I've never really done any fantasy stuff. I've never done any LARPing. I do love some of the worlds that are LARPed. Big fan of Warhammer 40k, mostly 40k. Never really got into Warhammer Fantasy. Here we go, the Limelight Collective. How can I learn Welsh? Duolingo is your friend, my friend. Duolingo, there's actually, no, I do genuinely recommend a site, and I think they've got a YouTube channel, and a program called Say Something in Welsh. And you can learn North Welsh or South Welsh. You dedicate some time to it, though. It is a program. It is like a class, a course. And it sounds daunting at the start, but you can basically do 10 minutes a week of practicing speaking Welsh. You build up the vocabulary, you learn a bit of how to pronounce things, and by the end of 6 months to a year, you can really communicate with Welsh speakers. And I have friends who've done it, I have acquaintances who've done it, and they really do think it's great. So Say Something in Welsh, I recommend. I'll put a link in the description. Any tips, asks Swan S. Bird, or resources for researching medieval fashion? Yes, any of those books that I just mentioned. I also would... Let's have a little look here. See what we've got on the bookshelf. Yeah, so things like the Tudor Tailor, Maria Hayward has done some Tudor stuff as well. There's a really big chunky book called Illuminating Fashion, which is very, very good. And then, and I can't speak for all of them obviously, but the SCA has a number of websites in their kind of library section, where they have lots and lots and lots and lots of good information. Museums, the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum is also very good. And, sorry, I'm being phoned. And then resources just like CosTube on YouTube. People like Casey Birchfield and Faye Sterling. There are lots and lots of CosTubers, guys. You should check out the CosTube guide on Instagram and just have a little fertle through some of the people on there, because there are lots of medieval people, there are lots of people who are really good at what they do there. But otherwise, I honestly just, yeah, lots of that. Go and look them up. Go and look up the CosTubers, because some of them have some amazing resources and amazing links and stuff. Mary. Favourite puns or sayings in Welsh? Ooh, okay. Got loads. Oh, me and my mum came up with one, which is gweithredwr llym, which means smooth operator. Literally a smooth operator. Gweithredwr llym. Which is it's a smooth operator. Gweithredwr llym. Puns. I don't really know any puns in Welsh, do I? Currently it is bwrw glaw hen regydd a ffyn. It's raining old ladies and sticks, which is a great fun old one that everybody learned as a kid. Gwen a wel y fran ei chyw is a favourite one of mine. The crow perceives its chick to be white. You know, a parent always sees the good in its child, basically. A child is always an angel to its parent. I've always liked that one as like a little saying, a little warning saying, a cautionary saying. I'm a terrible Welshman, I'm very literal. I don't have that many puns and things and all those little old sayings and stuff. Terrible Welshman, I do apologise. I'm not nearly poetic enough, I'm ddrwg gyda fi. If you're in a rush, sometimes if you're in a rush you could say you're a yar ar dan, fatha yar, rhithro fatha yar ar dan, like a chicken on fire. Don't set chickens on fire to see if it's true. It's true, I'm telling you that, just go with me. Vinsk, what sort of interaction did the Norse and Danes have with the Welsh? Well, there's definitely evidence that they settled in Wales. They certainly influenced the culture. The thing about Welsh culture at the time is it really was Brittonic and kind of insular culture. And we know that the Vikings were influenced by the culture that they found in Ireland and in Wales and in Scotland. And we have place names like Anglesey, Swansea, Tenby, that are all Norse. We know that there were Vikings living in Wales for generations, so it's certain that they influenced Welsh culture to an extent. The culture itself of the Britons survived quite well, actually, into the medieval period, at least in its writing, if not in its practice, quite as strongly. The main influence, of course, on the Norse was Christianity, where by the year 1000 they are effectively fully Christian. Still respecting their older traditions, of course, and sort of bringing in traditions of Norse religion into their new Christian faith, where we see things like images of Sigurd and Fafnir on crosses on the Isle of Man. The cross in Maloo Church, just outside Castletown on the Isle of Man, springs to mind. Rory Kerr, where do you buy your fabrics, especially wools? Now then, herein lieth the rub, because I know, thanks to Google's analytics, that 85% of you guys watching and subscribed are in the United States of America. And I am not in the United States of America, I am in Scotland, and I'm from Wales. And I try to buy my fabrics locally as much as possible to save on air miles, because we have been battering the snot out of the planet for the last few hundred years. So, Rory, I tend to buy my fabrics at local fabric stores. I buy a lot of my wools from Edinburgh Fabrics. I also buy my wools from places like Abraham Moon's and Hainsworth's, who are two very venerable old wool makers, fabric makers, based in England. I have bought wool from a tiny little shop, haberdashers in Carnarvon, in Caernarfon, which is near my hometown of Bangor, and they often have a wonderful supply of linens and tweeds and heavyweight wools in there. So I tend to buy from local fabric stores. I have bought things from places like I can't remember the bleeding name of it now. I can't remember. Cochan and Phillips. Cochan and Phillips, Kochan and Phillips, who do some amazing fabrics. They really, really do. And then Hart's Fabrics, Herts, like Hertfordshire. Hart's Fabrics. They are an absolute staple in the British reenactment scene. Bernie the Bolt and the Cloth Hall, which is run by a wonderful woman called Lindy Pickard, with a K, not like Jean-Luc. And again, all of those places I think are British based. I think Cochan and Phillips is British based. So yeah, I don't buy my fabric from abroad if I can absolutely help it. I have bought silk from Sartor, which is in Czechia, because oh my god, Sartor! But apart from that, I really try not to buy from overseas merchants fabric-wise, just because it's expensive importing and it's bad for the environment. Teresa Dawn, what was the biggest surprise you ever had doing reenactment? And do I do cooking? I do cooking, yes. I've just been making some Tudor recipes. In terms of Viking recipes, mead. I love making me some mead. Yeah, I've just been doing some Tudor recipes. I've made some Elizabethan meat pies. I made a March pane from 1604, which is basically proto-marzipan. It's gorgeous. It's got rose water in it. Wow, it's lovely. Baked marzipan. And the biggest surprise I ever had doing reenactment was probably a number of years ago now, when I was doing English Civil War reenactment, and I discovered that the group I was reenacting with had no kind of regulation in terms of the authenticity of the clothing being worn, at all, really. In theory they did, but in practice there was really very little regulation of the fabrics being used. of the cut and the machine sewing of clothing, and so there was a lot of polyester, and that really surprised me because this is the English Civil War is a period where firearms are used extensively. Like a third of the troops involved are using firearms, and having man-made textiles around firearms, black powder firearms, is a supremely bad idea. So that really surprised me. But yeah, nothing surprises me in reenactment anymore. Nothing surprises me. My God, I've seen some things. Question from Antiyewa. Do you do your own tablet weaving? What kind of yarn or thread is used? Yes, I do. I don't think I've got any to hand that I've done myself, but I've done some of the EDINBURGH weaves. And what I would suggest you use is, if you can find some nice silk or linen thread, fine silk and linen thread, I'm talking like kind of the if you think of like the usual Gutermann sewing thread, you know, standard sew-all sewing thread, like you put in a sewing machine, find some linen and silk about that thickness. And if you go to reenactment markets, you can get nice silk and nice thread of that kind of thickness, and use that, because period tablet weave is not made using double knit weight yarn. And one of the things that really turns me off when people are showing their tablet weave, or I should say, what really turns me off when people are wearing tablet weave is seeing that it's made out of double knit modern acrylic yarn, or double knit even wool yarn, because it's too thick. The period examples we have are incredibly fine. Some of them are the width of a pinky finger, and they have full designs built into them. So Antiyewa, I would say use the fine stuff. Use some fine silk linen thread. We tend not to see too much wool. It is quite a wealthy addition to your clothing, but yeah, I would use some nice fine sewing thread. Have a look, if you're UK based, again, De Vere Yarns make some beautiful threads. Lots of people just saying congratulations, which is very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's all down to you guys being wonderful and supportive. Danas Alexis, can you tell us 3 of your favourite things and a fun, interesting fact about Welsh? 3 of my favourite things. I love steam trains, definitely. I am a massive steam engine nerd. I play with steam trains in my spare time, as much as I can these days. I love them. LMS designs, Black Fives. Tea is one of my favourite things. I love tea. I'm currently drinking a wonderful Adagio Tea's Moonlight Earl Grey. It's got vanilla in it. It's very nice. Highly recommend. It would be really obvious and say my partner, but I'm not going to. Probably music. Music's definitely one of the things that makes me happiest is music. Fairly eclectic in my music tastes. The Who, actually, one of my favourite bands. And a fun or interesting fact about Welsh. Welsh has almost the same grammar structure as ancient Greek. There you go. It's an interesting fact about Welsh. Oh, fabulous. Yes, that's a great one. Tiger Lily. When you were part of the SK, that's the Sealed Knot, that's the English Civil War group, what part did you play? And if more than one, what was your favourite? So yeah, I played several parts. I was a musketeer and a pikeman. And I think I preferred musketeering because the way that the Sealed Knot does pike combat is completely fantastical. It's in no way based on historical practice, and it's quite dangerous. I've had more injuries from that than I have any other kind of combat. And with musketeering, you get to play with guns. Yeah, I find it fascinating. I am interested in guns and the development of guns and firearms technology, so I find being a musketeer really, really cool. So yeah, I was both those things, and I did some sword, and I did musket, and I did pike. Never played with the artillery. I was actually less interested in the artillery because I like the running about with a gun aspect too much. Never did any cavalry. I can't really ride a horse very well. I can walk. I think I can trot accidentally, but that's about it. Sela Brinthal. So a quick reenactment related question. Have you been to the Volin Festival? No. Are you planning to go at some point? Maybe. Not so quick Welsh related question. What is the general attitude of the Welsh people to the language? On the scale from historical relic to valid modern language. It is a valid modern language. It is universally, almost universally loved. by Welsh people. There are bad apples in every bunch, but it's almost universally valued and loved in Wales by the Welsh. It is a valid modern language. It is used day to day from government down to refuse collection. If an average Welsh person meets a proficient speaker of Welsh, are they likely to make certain assumptions? For example, patriotic, interested in history, traditional values, etc., etc., etc. There has been this view of Welsh speakers as being more nationalistic, more patriotic, but certainly since Welsh has been made compulsory in schools, we all learn Welsh. We all learn Welsh in school. Everybody I went to school with learned Welsh in primary school and in secondary school up to the age of 16. We all speak Welsh. Whether or not you use it afterwards is up to you and your circumstances and your opinions. I used Welsh a lot less when I was a child and decided as a teen that I care about my culture and my heritage, and I want to speak with my friends and family in a language that is mine. English is very useful, and I have English friends and family as well, of course, but nowadays the attitude towards Welsh has changed, where you get people sort of my age, in their sort of late 20s, early 30s, who've left school, not used their Welsh, and really regret that. And people older than that regret not being taught Welsh much in school. So Welsh is a lot more treasured now. It's a lot more valued, and I think that that is wonderful. I think that's a fabulous thing, because it's basically a 2,000-year-old language that we're still speaking, and it's just great. And it's not as difficult to learn as everyone makes out, especially if you've got a good teacher. Say something in Welsh.com. LB! If I were to begin historical sewing, do I have book recommendation? The ones that I mentioned, Nora War for historical sewing. Nora War's The Cut of Men's Clothes, W-A-U-G-H. Nora is a profoundly good historical costuming writer, and you should buy the book. You should buy the book with hard, cold money. It's worth it. It is definitely my top recommended book for general historical sewing. Oh, lovely compliments at the end of that question, so thank you. Law Lutar, or Lau Lutar, what made you interested in this particular time period? Well, in all honesty, my friend John came up to me in the university library when I was doing my undergraduate degree in Liverpool, about 11, 12 years ago now, and quite simply murmured in my ear, "Would you like to come and be a Viking with me this weekend?" And I was simply so overcome that I agreed on the spot and never looked back since. But honestly, before that, before I was about 19, 20, no interest in the Viking period at all. None whatsoever. I had like a small, a budding interest in medieval Welsh history and culture, but, you know, I'd read the Mabinogion and that was it. Yeah, I think it was my friend John introducing me to Regia Anglorum as a reenactment group really started me off on it. So thank you very much, John. Thanks, JD. What, asks Josie Gilmore, thanks very much, what's your dream project, and if or when you make it, would you share the process with the Yowchaubs? Yotobs. Yeah, of course I will. Of course I will. If and when I make my dream project, it is obviously going to go on the YouTubes. Josie, definitely. My dream project? Honestly, and this is going to probably be a bit left field for some of you guys to hear, is I would really, really like to make a full set of Second World War khaki drill uniform, like the British Army wore in the desert in North Africa. And that's because I have family members who fought in the Desert War, and I would really, really love to put together a Desert Rats impression. I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to. It's a period of history that is very special to me. Medieval-wise, I would very much like a set of Gothic plate armour. That is a dream project. It really is a dream. I am not a blacksmith, I'm not an armourer, and I do not have the skills for that, but oh, if I ever got the chance to make a piece of that armour, I would leap at it. I would love, love, love to have some Gothic armour. I just think it's the most gorgeous but practical, mad, war-y kit. Great stuff. Joanne Hayter, or Hayter, Hayter's gonna height. What was your... I'm really sorry if people say that to you all the time, Joanne. I really do apologise. What was your study route at uni? And what was your undergrad in? My undergraduate was in ancient history and archaeology. I ended up working on graveyards, historical graveyards, as my undergrad dissertation, based on the fieldwork that I ended up doing. My master's degree was in archaeological studies, and I looked at industrial buildings. And I'm currently working on Celtic languages. I'm working on Gaelic and Welsh, and the use of them around graveyards and gravestones and memorials. So that's kind of been my route, was really dictated by that initial fieldwork I did in my undergraduate degree, which was based around graveyards in Ireland and the Isle of Man. Yeah, nothing to do with the medieval period, weirdly. Kate Q, do I have any recommendations for sources of medieval embroidery? Hoo boy, yes, but my preferred period is the Viking period. And if you are looking for medieval sort of slightly later than that, then my recommendation for you is this book, which is the Victoria and Albert Museum's English Medieval Embroidery, Opus Anglicanum, and it was for their Opus Anglicanum exhibit, and it has a wonderful, it's got an embarrassment of riches in it, and it has things like the Marnhull Offrey, which is just an insane piece of embroidery covered in Jesuses. And every page is like that, so I highly recommend this. If you can get hold of it, it's probably quite expensive. If you can get hold of it, English Medieval Embroidery, from the V&A, published by Yale University Press. The ISBN is 978-0-300-22200-5. So that is what I would recommend for you. Medieval embroidery from the British Isles. Kate Q, wonderful question, thank you so much. Alma Ulmane or Ulmain, where do you draw the line of historical accuracy versus modern materials? And why don't you talk about Baltic or Curonian Vikings? I don't talk about Baltic or Curonian Vikings because they are distinctly different archaeologically to what we find in Britain, to the extent that I think they are probably a separate subject academically. Things like the Baltic nations had different traditions to traditions that we see in places like Denmark and Western Norway and the British Isles. So yeah, they are kind of separate in that way. And I draw the line historically based around practicality. I hand sew everything I make medievally. Everything I make by hand. I try not to use power tools. The sword scabbard just there was all made by hand, using period equipment and materials. If I can't get period materials, I probably won't bother making it, and I'll just do without. This is just my hobby. I'm not making things to commission. So finding the right materials is part of the hobby for me, and if I can't do that, then I will usually move on to something else until I can. But I will change stuff here and there. You know, I will make a pouch a few inches bigger to accommodate a mobile phone. That's not the end of the world as far as I'm concerned. I will make something a little bit wider, a little bit bigger to fit me, to fit what I need. I need my car keys, you guys. I'm sorry, I need car keys. And another good question from Alma. When researching meanings and origins of a symbol, where is a good place to look for sources? Blimey. I would genuinely start at Wikipedia. And everyone's going to go, but Wikipedia is really heavily edited, really heavily monitored in things like Viking archaeology. In terms of Baltic symbols, in your case, ask around your local museums, your local archaeological trusts or archaeological organisations if you have them, and just ask them. It's amazing what you can get just by asking museums and people and saying, hey, I'm researching Baltic Viking period symbols. Do you have any recommendations for a book I can read? Do you have any finds that I should look up in your archives? Where do I look? It's just amazing how people will respond to that. Alin Elfa, how many of the Norse population were actually warriors? Weren't they mostly farmers? Yeah, you're right. They were mostly farmers, craftspeople, fishermen, traders, merchants. But the thing about this period is if you needed to get warriors, any man of age who could wield a shield and spear is effectively a warrior, at least for a day, if you need them to. If your lord tells you, pick up this spear and defend the town, you defend the town. But yeah, a lot of the raw warfare was for higher up members of society who could afford weapons, who could afford to take days off to train, who didn't have to be on a farm every day. Because if you know farming and you've grown up as a farmer, you will know that is a 24/7 job. Season to season. Tila Como, did the Vikings have pets? Yeah, they had dogs and they had cats. They also kept, well, in the Viking period, early medieval people had birds of prey, falcons, etc. They had dogs for hunting, they had cats to keep mice down. And how did they take care of them? Effectively the same way that we do. They didn't have veterinary science in the same way we do, but they fed them, they loved them, they let them live in their homes with them. What do we have here? Mineke Boots Verhof. Do you also make all the accessories? No, alas, I don't make all my own accessories with the spoons and things like that. I tend to buy those. I am trying to learn woodworking, boneworking and hornworking, but I am very much a beginner, so bear with me. I'm also planning on learning some metalworking. Not something that I can do just yet. Venus and Bluebells, dude, hi. How many clothes did Vikings bring on their sea voyages and how did they clean them at sea? Well, honestly, that's a mystery to me. I don't know how they clean them at sea. My gut feeling is they probably didn't. But I'm pretty sure they take at least a couple of spare sets of clothing with them. When it comes to laundry and cleaning clothes at home, I know they had fat soap, so soap with fat and ash combined together. And I know that they used just hot water to clean their clothing a lot of the time. But for things like wool, probably mostly just brushing it off and spot cleaning if it's got stains and mud and things on it. Dawn Oldham, hey Dawn. You've asked me things about family life, gender roles, and marriage, and that is one of those things I want to do an actual video on, so I'm going to leave that for now if that's okay. I'm in the middle of researching a Viking marriage video, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to skip ahead to Swiss Edwardian, who asks what appropriate colours would be for the Middle Ages. Yeah, the excuse that dyes were expensive is a non-argument, because you can dye things with almost anything, if you don't mind that it fades a little bit. The thing with dyes in the period is they had lots of them. They had woad, they had weld, they had oak galls, they had madder, they had all kinds of wonderful plants. They had lichen that makes things pinky purple. Madder makes things red or orange or brick coloured. They had oak galls that makes things go dark grey. They had woad that can make things go indigo blue, like blue jeans blue. If you dye it a few times, you make it strong enough. Weld makes things go bright yellow, so you can get pink, orange, purple, green, brown, red. The most common colours we see fabrics from the early medieval period in Britain are yellow and red. So yeah, they had all of those colours available to them, and a variety of shades of colours as well. If you look at natural dyeing projects online, that shows you the breadth of colour they could do. I think I'll actually do a video on natural dyeing at some point, because that's a subject, Swiss Edwardian, with your wonderful avatar, that's worth exploring. So yeah, there we go. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, that was wonderful. Guys, thank you. That's my Q&A done. I'm losing my voice now, but thank you so much for your continued support. Diolch yn fawr iawn am cefnogi'r channel ma. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed. Yeah, Fidram Coelho, I can't believe ma' 2,000 ohonoch, the 2 million of you, the 2 million, my god, there's 2,000 of you. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Your support is really, really, really lovely. It's lovely to wake up and see all these comments come in from the other side of the world. In some cases, it's just absolutely amazing. And so many of you expressed a love for Welsh culture being involved in my channel, and that's really heartwarming and encouraging. So, diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch o galon. Thank you from the heart. It's very kind of you. Diolch o galon, actually. That's a Welsh saying that we say a lot. Diolch o galon. Thank you from my heart. So I hope some of those books and things are useful. I'll put the names of them down in the description, and a couple of international fabric sellers as well, if I can think of any decent ones that don't have like terrible import charges. So diolch yn fawr iawn unwaith eto. Na welch chi tro nesa. I'll see you next time. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now. 2000.